Hey guys, Dan here. It's Dan Reviews It and a WandaVision recap. We're doing now all 9 episodes. We'll talk a little bit about episode 9 and the entire series. And with me on Zoom is Tim. Hello, Tim.
Hi, everybody.
Tim usually joins for the older Dan Does Disney reviews, but every so often there's something that we're both kind of right in tune with that's very current. We did Queen's Gambit together, and now we're going to do WandaVision.
Yeah, it was fun last time doing Queen's Gambit, and I think it's going to be an enjoyable time doing WandaVision.
Yeah, we seem to pick really good things.
Yeah, for the most part.
We haven't really talked any crap yet, at least for the new shows. But you actually will have some good insight because you rewatched the entire series over the weekend before doing this.
Yeah, I was hoping to watch all episode 1 through 8 prior to watching episode 9, but I got a little bit behind, so I got like through episode maybe 5 before watching episode 9. But then on Saturday I watched 6 through 9 a second time.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I only watched them each time once, but you know, I mean, it's pretty fresh stuff since they just started a few weeks ago. I kind of like, by the way, that Disney Plus is doing these weekly episodes. It keeps these shows in the conversation longer, I think, like Mandalorian and stuff.
Yeah, I think they've been doing that from the start with their original content. Is they're doing weekly episodes. So
yeah, I believe that's true. And some others have done that. Apple Plus does that, but Netflix sticking to their everything up at once. I think Hulu mostly does that too. But all right, so let's go over a little bit about episode 9 here. And if you have watched my other episodes, you know that they're 25, 30-minute installments here about kind of every little detail that happens. We're not going to go quite into that much detail since we are going to do the whole overview. But essentially, this episode involves a huge power struggle between Agatha, who used to be
do we want to point out that there will be spoilers in this video? And
if you're right. Yeah. You know what? That's a good idea.
Do not watch WandaVision. Do not watch this video. Go watch WandaVision and then enjoy us talking about it afterwards.
Yes, that's a good idea. I did do that in most of my other WandaVision videos, but yes, we should definitely say that up front. Spoilers, 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 for sure. So in this episode, we have basically Agatha and Wanda, who is now known as the Scarlet Witch by Agatha. Now, we knew she was the Scarlet Witch from like Ultron and all the other things.
No, we did not.
Oh, we didn't?
No, we knew that she was the Scarlet Witch just because she's Wanda Maximoff, and that's the character from the comics. But she's never been referred to as Scarlet Witch in the MCU at all. Because, I mean, she's not wearing the costume. I mean, sometimes she has red hair, sometimes she doesn't. So, I mean, she has witchy-like powers. So maybe she was referred to as a witch, maybe by like Tony Stark or something like that. But she's never been called the Scarlet Witch ever in the MCU. And in they remind us in this television show when they're doing the whole debriefing in I guess that's the episode 4 or 5 where Jimmy Woo is like talking about who Wanda Maximoff is, and Haywood's like, has she had any nicknames or funny aliases? And he's like, nope, not a one.
That's very odd. Okay, because at the end of episode 8, Agatha was like, well, that makes you the Scarlet Witch, and it was like roll credits, and I was like, is that supposed to be some kind of like big mic drop or something? Like I knew she was Scarlet Witch from all the movies, but all right, so they never actually said it. We just know because that's who she is.
Yeah, because of the comics and like.
Okay, all right. Well, that's very odd then. And she does have witch-like powers, so I didn't think there was anything that we didn't know about that. And the powers she uses are red, aka Scarlet. All right. Well, anyway, so we now know her as the Scarlet Witch. Agatha now knows her as the Scarlet Witch. So the two of them are battling, but of course, they're both witches, so they're using their powers kind of against each other, and Agatha's sort of taking in Wanda's powers, but they end up going up to the sky to fight up there, and Wanda sort of gives us a callback from, I guess, the beginning of episode 8, where she herself puts runes all in the clouds and stuff and says, well, your powers are no good here. Only mine are because I put the runes up. Da 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 da. So then that basically ends towards the end of the episode where Agatha is, beaten by Wanda, and she turns her back into Agnes, the nosy neighbor that we saw earlier in the series. And that's sort of her ending. But I think we can all expect that character to return at some point in the MCU. I don't know when that will be. She is not listed in the credits of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness like Elizabeth Olsen is, who plays Wanda. But I mean, right? We got to see Agatha again.
I imagine at some point. I don't think she'll be a main villain at any point. But like it'd be maybe like a Darcy Lewis or like a Jimmy Woo, like bringing them back into somewhat of a supporting character.
Yeah, and as I mentioned on the last WandaVision recap, in the comics, she does become Wanda's mentor at some point, so they may have sort of something with that as well. But in terms of the people of Westview, we're sort of jumping around here, but I want to get all the character stuff out. So the people of Westview, in terms of Wanda, well, they're not huge fans because, of course, she brainwashed them for the last however long, I don't know, a few weeks, I guess. And so Wanda takes the hex down from the town so everybody can go back to who they were, because one of Agatha's sort of things to Wanda was like, well, you think you're a good person, but you're not. Good people don't do this to innocent people. So Wanda obviously having a lot of guilt with this. I think we'll see more of that, as the MCU continues. But as a result, she loses her life in Westview. She loses Vision, who we'll talk actually a little bit about the Vision battle in a second. But she loses Vision. She loses her kids. And she is once again alone at the end of the show. So in terms of the Vision stuff, so we had the White Vision. They don't really call him that in the show, I guess, but that's what he is, I guess, from the comic books. And he was seen at the end of episode 8. Was that in the mid-credits scene? I think it was.
That was the mid-credit scene, yes.
So we've got White Vision, and he basically is there to kill regular Vision, Wanda's Vision, I guess we could call him. So they have a big fight going head to head in the library. And basically, Vision gives the White Vision all of his memories, and is saying like, look, Hayward's using you just like he was trying to use me. Sword is not on the up and up. They created you to, for their own creation, for weaponizing you, whatever. So he ends up flying off at the end, and where he goes, we're not quite sure. There's certainly some theories on where he might end up. Where do you think he went after leaving the scene here?
I'm not really sure. Because I mean, that was an interesting scene in general, because regular Vision is the target of White Vision, and he's like, I have to destroy the Vision, and he's like, well, I'm not really the Vision. He's like, please explain. And they talk about the ship Theseus, the paradox, which is basically there's a ship Theseus that was part of on display, and eventually like they're replacing parts of it because of rot and stuff like that, and eventually they replaced the whole ship. So is that still the ship Theseus? And then the debate is, well, if you took all those pieces that you took off of it and you could cure the rot and then you put it back together, you would have two ships Theseus, and mm-hmm. Ships Theseus. So it's basically the same thing with Vision here. And so he unlocked White Vision's memories, and then he said, I am Vision, and he flew off. So I'm not really sure where he would go. You would think that he would go to Wanda, but maybe he has to do some soul searching of for himself and figure out where his role in this world is.
My nephew had kind of an interesting theory when we watched it. He thinks he might have gone to Wakanda to help out the people there, and so we may see him as a part of Black Panther too.
Yeah, I mean, that is where his last memory would be.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where he's going. It's kind of up in the air. I do like the fact that they introduced White Vision and left the door open for Paul Bettany to keep doing the role of Vision.
Yeah, I was glad about that too, because I always liked the Vision character. I didn't love him so much with Wanda, because in the movies I didn't really care for Wanda Maximoff that much. But yeah, I thought he's done a great job here as Vision, both in the Vision role and then the you know, what I don't know what you called when he was not Vision, like when he was going to work and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
he wasn't Jarvis, right? That was
no, he was still Vision. He was just Vision in disguise, I guess.
Okay, yeah. So I thought he did a good job with that. So yeah, I'm very happy for him to continue in that role. But we also had a little bit with the Darkhold in this episode, which I didn't realize. I had done a little bit of digging when they showed it in episode 7 or whatever, and I talked about sort of its relation to Doctor Strange, but I didn't realize that it actually started in the MCU anyway, in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They had
Did
you watch that show?
I watched it. I didn't finish it. I think I'm like maybe one more season I have to go.
Okay, because it was season 4 they introduced it.
Season 4 they introduced it and played a very important part, like for the whole season, and they really emphasized that it has great powers, and usually it's used for evil, and bad things happen when it's opened.
And it had to do with Ghost Rider in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right?
Ghost Rider was the person that had to stop there was like an AI unit that was using the Darkhold to create like a whole virtual area for people.
Okay.
It was weird, but
well, yeah, I never got into that show, but yeah, I was surprised to see that was already a part of it. So I imagine we'll see more of the Darkhold in Doctor Strange 2, which will be coming out. But all right, so the last thing I guess really to talk about with this episode before we get to kind of the mid and end credit sequence is Monica, because she wasn't really in episode 8 at all. I think last we saw her was at the end of episode 7 in the mid credit sequence where she was sort of sneaking around the house. And so we see now that she is, going up against Quicksilver, but fake Quicksilver, which I was very confused by this whole thing. I had to look up, what this all meant. So Evan Peters, who played Quicksilver in the X-Men universe, apparently this is not quite the same thing, which we all kind of assumed it was because of who they cast. But it turns out this guy was just given Quicksilver's powers to act as if he was Pietro, but he was really some guy from Westview named Ralph Boner. And he was, a part of the Westview experience with the Hex, like everybody. Were you confused by that whole thing?
No. So he was part of the Hex experience, but then Agatha came in and then put like that necklace on him to like control him and gave him Quicksilver's powers so that she could use him to kind of get information from Wanda, because she's been trying to figure out how Wanda did this the whole time. That was
right
what Agatha has been doing. So basically, they could have done anybody as Quicksilver, like in this, but so they could have had.
But they wanted to fool us.
Yeah, they wanted to fool us. They could have had what's his
Aaron
face?
Taylor Johnson.
Yeah, Aaron Taylor Johnson reprised the role, but I think they really wanted to recast it because they were playing off sitcom tropes, so they wanted to recast the character.
Oh, that makes sense. Like
So
Second Becky and all of that.
yeah, so they were doing a lot of sitcom things. So I think if they're going to recast anybody, let's get Evan Peters, do that, and then that would be a tease for the audience to like maybe they're opening the multiverse or introducing X-Men somehow. I think a lot of people were probably disappointed by that, but I thought it was pretty good.
I was a bit disappointed because he is one of my favorite characters in the new X-Men movies, the newer ones.
Yes, but I think if you go down that path, then that kind of limits what they can do with their X-Men properties. Like, then they would have to bring in everybody from the new X-Men movies, which were not that great of people.
Right.
So I think it was just a way to like excite the fans, but then kind of disappoint them in the same way. But I didn't mind that.
Well, and Ralph, of course, is the name that Agnes had been using on and on and on to indicate her husband. Oh, you know, Ralph this and Ralph that. So obviously, this is a much younger person than would be her husband. But clearly, that's what he was going for when she kept saying the name over and over.
Well, she was the next door neighbor, and Ralph Boner lived next door to the house that Wanda had chosen. So she kind of just was like, okay, well, I'm just going to just keep name dropping my husband Ralph, even though it's not her husband.
So that was his house that
house
Monica was sneaking around. Not, we thought it was Agatha's, but that's really just she overtook that house, but it was his house. Okay, got it. All right. See, this is good to actually do with somebody, so I can know some things myself because I'm not Mr. Marvel here. But thank you for that. So all right. So anyway, back to Monica. So by the end of the show, Monica is basically with Jimmy Woo, sort of having to clean up the mess that Wanda had left, and all of this, and take down the sword cronies. Director Hayward gets arrested and busted and all of this, and she also stops Hayward's bullet from hitting Wanda's kids, realizing kind of, I think, in the same way, her own powers that we really haven't explored too much. We saw it a little bit when she forced her way back into the hex in, I want to say, episode 8, or no, she wasn't in episode 8, episode 7, I guess.
Yeah,
or was that 8?
No, it was 7.
Okay, yeah, I didn't think she was in 8. So, anyway, but by the end, everything's back to normal. Everything's in real time again. But I guess everybody remembers what happened, right? I mean, their memories aren't wiped.
No, everybody remembers.
Yeah, so that's going to be, possibly something that the Wanda character will have to deal with. That not only did she do this to everybody, but they all know she did it. They all remember that she did it, and all of that. So let's talk a little bit here about the mid and the end credit sequences. So we've got at first the one with Monica. She goes into the empty movie theater, and turns out there's a Skrull agent waiting for her, and that, to me, was a hint at the Spider-Man Far From Home credit sequence where Nick Fury is shown up in space, because at the end of the mid-credit sequence here in WandaVision, they shoot up to space. What did you think of that?
Yeah. So the Skrull agent says to Monica, like, I was sent by an old friend of your mother. Obviously, that's Nick Fury. Like,
right. Who else could it be?
Yeah. The only other friend that she probably had was maybe Agent Coulson, but it wasn't really, and he's dead.
What about Carol, though? What about Captain Marvel herself?
I guess.
They were buddies.
Yeah. But I feel like it's more Nick Fury.
Yeah. That was my first thought.
Because you got the link before the Skrulls agents. Like you said, at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, it was revealed that the Nick Fury that we saw and Agent Hill, the whole movie that we saw, they were Skrull agents, and they were pretending to be Nick Fury and Agent Hill, and then we see that Nick Fury's up in space. Right. So I think that basically it's going to be Nick Fury. So obviously we're going to see Monica again. She's going to go to space because the agent said, "Hey, we hear you're grounded, but your friend's, he's up there." And she's like, "Up there?" And she's like, so either she's going to show up in Captain Marvel 2 with Nick Fury. I don't know if Nick Fury's in Captain Marvel 2, or the Secret Invasion series, which is going to start filming in April here and has a release date, I guess, early next year on Disney Plus, and that is with Nick Fury. So,
okay, so it could be that too.
I don't know which one comes first and being released. I think both of them are kind of gearing up for the same time of filming wise. But yeah, we'll see. Monica again. I don't know what alias she'll go under. She has like 4 different ones. Sometimes she becomes the new Captain Marvel. Sometimes it's like Photon or
I had written up the list of those for my last, but Photon was one of them. There was like 3 or 4 different ones. Let me see if I can see it here.
Photon, Pulsar, Spectrum are the 3.
Spectrum, that was one.
And sometimes he becomes the new Captain Marvel.
All right, and then the post-credit sequence, which I didn't realize at first because none of the other ones had a post-credits, but this one does. And this is just basically Wanda at this cabin studying the Darkhold, doing her powers, and she hears her sons from the series calling for help. That was very interesting. I don't know if that has anything to do with Doctor Strange, because that will be the next time that we see Wanda. I don't know.
Yeah, well, the next time we're going to see Wanda is in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. They are currently filming that now. I know that. But there's a little bit more to that scene is, so you see Wanda making tea, and then it pans past her, and then you also see Wanda in her Scarlet Witch outfit in her astral
that's right.
form. So that so she's studying the Darkhold. I think she's studying the Darkhold to possibly maybe somehow figure out how to get her kids back. That's what I interpret the screams as. But that also gives a little insight into Wanda's powers in general, because Agnes says the Scarlet Witch is not born, she is forged, and that's basically what this whole series is about. But then she also says her power will succeed the Sorcerer Supreme, which is Doctor Strange, and her destiny is to destroy the world. So obviously bad things are in her future, but it also, this scene shows that she's already more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme, because in Doctor Strange, anytime that he's in his astral form, he is sleeping. He is not doing other things when he's doing it.
Okay.
And so she's doing stuff in the natural form and the astral form at the same time. So that just shows her strength at this point.
So she's, I mean, I think she's going to be the villain in Doctor Strange. Have people said that? Is that like, do we all know that already? Or that's certainly what I think.
Know that.
Okay.
They're probably keeping a tight seal on that. I imagine maybe she's the villain, or it would be a shame that if she is, because I feel like this whole series was getting to know Wanda and being like, okay, I really like Elizabeth Olsen's performance as Wanda. We really get more into her character than what we've been given in the 4 movies that she was in, maybe.
Yeah. Because 3 of the Avengers ones and then Civil War, right?
Yeah.
Well, but one of the things I think this series showed us is that Wanda will do literally anything for family. So if it means trying to get her kids back or what have you, as much as she regrets now doing what she did to the citizens of Westview, if there's a chance to be reunited with her kids, I don't know. I especially if Agatha's telling us that she needs to take over the world. That's like her bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could certainly see it. I agree. Maybe it would be a little bit upsetting since we finally found a great version of this character that we can all get behind. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just know she's second billed in the IMDb and the wiki pages for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So that to me could mean she's fighting side by side with him. But the way this ends, especially with the end credit sequence, I don't know. I think it's the other way. I think she might be the villain.
Or possibly maybe she found herself in a situation that she cannot control, and maybe she's on the verge of possibly becoming a villain, and Doctor Strange has to thus intercede and help her and guide her on the right path.
That could be.
Yeah.
All right. So was there anything else specifically about episode 9 that we didn't cover before we go into the whole series?
I mean,
I tried to basically just do kind of the Cliff Notes version. There was definitely, did you notice the Oz reference? Of course, there's always an Oz.
There was an Oz reference. There was actually 2 Oz references. There was the one with the shoes underneath the car.
Yeah, that was the one that got to me.
But then I don't know if it was this episode, but there is on the marquee, I think maybe it's in the credits on the 70s episode where
Oz the Great and Powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know what episode that was, but it wouldn't have been the 70s episode because that came out in 2013 or whatever. I think it's one of the more recent ones.
Maybe.
But not only that, but after I saw the shoes under the house, I was like, okay, let's think about some other ones. And the one that struck out to me was when Agatha said she killed the dog.
Oh, yeah.
Remember in that one episode where she was like, oh, also I'm the one who killed the dog. So that reminded me obviously of Toto, but I'm sure there's knowing the writers, I'm sure there's plenty of other ones that I just wasn't getting, but either way, so let's talk about Catherine Hahn for a second, because you and I have been following her career in movies for like 20 years.
Yeah,
from Step Brothers, This Is Where I Leave You, Bad Words. I mean, she's kind of a go-to for bad moms, sort of the silly, over the top characters. But I thought her casting was so good here.
Yeah, because like in the first couple of episodes, she does a really good job of being the nosy neighbor character and putting in like little cheeky humor, one-liners. We see that there's a lot more to her character than what we originally believe. And then even prior to the reveal that she is Agatha Harkness, like that one scene in the car with Vision where she's like freaking out. Yeah. And then we find out that that's all an act. So it's like another layer on that performance as well.
Yeah, I feel like you really needed somebody that can do those really like silly over the top comedy moments from the old sitcoms. Even like through the 80s era where she's, got the big hair and she's talking about her sex life and everything, to somebody who can actually be, a bit scary and actually threatening to the person. So I'm so glad that like people will finally know who she is after being, I think, under the radar for so long.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show you how popular her character was. Because her like 40-second song that it was added was like number 1 iTunes charts. Like,
was it really?
Yeah, she had. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, I mean, and that's what's so funny. It's like she's been a hardworking actor for decades, but but she'll finally be, I think, more of a household name with this, and I'm very happy about that. But all right, other than that, so let's go back to the beginning. Let's talk about I don't know, the sitcom tropes on the whole. I mean, I mentioned many of them as I went through the episodes, but as an old sitcom fan and really dating back to the 50s and 60s era, I thought the writers of this, and I don't know if I'm sure it was a group of writers. I think the same director for all the episodes, but I'm sure they had different writers. Let's see here. Yeah, Matt Shackman directed all of them, but yeah, written by Jack Schaefer, Gretchen Enders, Megan McDonald. So each person or each episode has a different writer, but I just love the attention to detail.
Yeah, but a lot of times I think with writers, they usually just credit one writer for the show, but it's usually probably a
it's kind of a collaboration.
It's usually a collaboration. And they're like, okay, well, you're getting credit for this episode, maybe you're getting credit for this episode, or something like that.
Yeah, and I think that's probably like a Writers Guild type thing.
Yeah,
that they like have to do that. But yeah, you're right. So I'm sure people are collaborating on all these, but the attention to detail was just phenomenal. I mentioned a lot of that along the way in my reviews, but they really got, things, especially like the set design on this show. When you look at like the Family Ties house and the 80s episode here, it's not verbatim. It's just off enough that it's supposed to be the Family Ties house, but they have a lot of the same things on the walls, and the staircase might be on the other side of the room this time, but it's so clearly like designed down to the stitch. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, because they were just basically taking the same house that they had and be like, okay,
modifying.
The stairs are always going to be here, and it's going to be okay. These are Brady like stairs, even though it's from the opposite direction. But obviously, this is the Brady Bunch. But
right, like they'll carpet it the same way. But right,
yeah.
You're right. The staircase never moves, no matter what house they were trying to be in. But just by all the other sort of tchotchkes along the walls and everything. Yeah, I thought that was great. And then just even the dialogue, the manner of speaking, and the who played the blonde. Let me see if I can figure that out. The blonde woman in town,
Dottie,
because she was great too.
Emma Caulfield or something like that. She was on Buffy in the later seasons. She played.
Oh yes,
she played Xander's girlfriend.
Yes, she was. She was actually also on 90210, the original version of that too, a long time ago. But yeah, she was great. She reminded me very much of those sort of old tropes. Yeah, I thought that was great.
Yeah, because they were doing simple things of like having the boss for dinner, kids getting a dog. That always happens in sitcoms. But then they were also like they tackled aging up the kids. They tackled, like I said, recasting characters. They talked about the single bed. Like the hiding the pregnancy, I thought was very clever.
Oh, that was great.
Like, okay, she's hiding the pregnancy, but this is what actors have to do even this day. Like on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, like probably 2 seasons ago, the girl that plays Amy was pregnant, and like she's holding large things in front of her tummy or wearing like baggy jackets or something like that. And they did that for this episode, and I thought that was clever.
Yeah, that was great.
Even that episode where like the pregnancy was like just going fast forward, I thought that was just like a poke fun at like a lot of times the timetables of sitcom pregnancies are way off. Like that's one of the things about Friends is like she finds out that she's pregnant at the season finale of one season, and then she carries the baby a whole next season, and it's supposed to be a year, and then they're celebrating her birthday halfway through the next season. It's like, well, these don't really add up.
Yeah, I thought every little attention to the detail, and the theme songs too. Whoever they had writing the different theme songs, they got it down so it wasn't necessarily copying any singular theme song, but like you could always sort of tell the era you were in, and all of that. And the like the art directors that were doing the logos for the theme songs, they had that right down to the stitch. Like the Malcolm in the Middle one, I thought was so perfect.
Yeah, and even the theme songs and opening credits, like they would have like the 70s one where like they have all the people in hex shaped boxes, which is like alluding to not only just the hex but also a lot of times Wanda's powers is called hex magic in the comics.
Okay.
So that's clever. They actually showed Geraldine in the opening credits of the second episode prior to her being introduced to us as a viewer.
Oh.
A lot of the lyrics in the songs were like saying, like alluding to the fact that like maybe this is all illusion, maybe it's like Wanda all along. Like so.
So speaking of that, since you rewatched everything, I noticed when they were doing the most recent sitcom episode, which would have been, I guess, episode 7, whichever one where they were talking to the camera like Modern Family.
Yeah.
I noticed that when they did the theme song for that, it said created by Wanda Maximoff. Do
Yep.
all of them say that?
I don't think they all do, but that was clearly a Modern Family like title page, and Modern Family has that underneath their title thing. It's created by.
Okay. But I thought that was a nod to like, because this town has, because by that point we kind of knew what the story was with the town.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other ones, I didn't see it on the other ones, but it's obviously, that's another thing that I wrote down too. It was like, it clearly says created by Wanda Maximoff. Like, I think a lot of people were trying to, like, maybe there was a different person pulling Wanda's strings, but Wanda did this, but she did it by accident. Like, it wasn't like she did it on purpose, and then halfway through she realized that she did create this, but I don't think she realized how it was affecting everybody until Agnes or Agatha pulled down their strings, and she was like, they were all confronting her and being like, hey, that was a couple things that they were like.
Yeah, I think Vision probably realized it before she did.
I think they both realized at the same time, but then I think she was like, well, I have Vision back, and was just like, kind of like, okay, I'm in this scenario, I'm just gonna enjoy it. But what were they saying here? They were saying, oh, when they were like all confronted, they were saying, we feel your pain when we dream her nightmares. Her grief is poisoning them, and they're asking, just, if you don't want to free us, just let us die. Like, so I don't think
that was heartbreaking.
This to this point, we also find out that from the Dottie character that she's like, hey, my girl can be friends with your kids as long as you just let her out of the room, or maybe I can.
Right.
It was very heartbreaking. You realize, oh wow, like Wanda really messed up, like, but I don't think she realized how detrimental it was to the people. I think because she's like, oh, but I'm keeping you safe. I'm like, it's like it wasn't safe for them.
No, she was like basically trying to talk herself into that she was doing good for these people, and clearly she wasn't. But to go back to the Hex thing for a moment, because you were talking about the 70s theme song with the Hex, that Hex shape shows up so much in the series. It's on pillowcases, it's on like bookshelf designs.
Yeah.
Like, we see hexes all over, and that speaks again to the art directors, I think, and the set designers of this series. Were there any that you noticed that were like, oh my god, that's a hex?
Like the first one I really noticed was that when the first episode, when they have the credits, like they zoom in on Wanda and Vision, and it's a hex around them, and then we pull back the which we find out Darcy's handwriting in a notebook, in a sword notebook. But I wrote down a couple lyrics here. It was episode 6. It was the Malcolm in the Middle one. It was don't try to stop the chaos. Don't question what you've done. What if it's only illusion? Like it's pointing to the fact that like, well, it's Wanda's fault, but it's like, hey, just don't question it. Just go along with it. Like,
wow. Okay.
Like, there's a couple different ones in there. Yeah. So I really enjoyed the theme songs and looking at those.
Yeah, I thought they were great. So okay, a couple of things that now that you've seen it twice, maybe you could help me out with. The beekeeper at the end of, I think, episode 2. Did he ever, like, I know we showed him in one of the later episodes, like, going in, but what was the deal with the bees specifically? Did that ever get brought up again?
Well, we see the guy going in the tunnel in was it the episode?
I think that was episode 4, maybe.
Yeah, we interrupt this program, and it was just basically rewriting him because he was in I think a hazmat suit, and it was just like rewriting him to be look more like.
Oh, to give him a reason for wearing that outfit.
Yeah, something similar.
Okay.
So like it rewrote Monica's bulletproof vest to like 70s bulletproof bell bottoms. Yeah. Like, so it was just rewriting it, and like like when they pulled back the rope that he was attached to, they rewrote it to look like a jump rope. It was just rewriting it, and the way that rewrote the vehicle that Monica tried to drive in, like the big tank thing, it rewrote half of it.
That's right. Yeah, it made it like an old Dodge Caravan or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's see. What else can we talk about? Well, first of all, we didn't talk about Kat Dennings really much at all. I love her as Darcy Lewis in the movies. I loved her here in this. She has a very funny sort of entrance in the final episode.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Kat Dennings. I liked her in the Thor movies. I liked her in some of her early work. I didn't like her in the Two Broke Girls show.
No, that show stinks.
Sadly, but I do like her. Her humor was well welcomed in the show. I think it takes the character that she was, and because she was just kind of like the comic relief sidekick, and kind of like made her like a little bit more progression of her character in the MCU. Like now she's a doctor of astrophysics and stuff like that.
Well, I thought the same about Jimmy Woo as well.
Oh, Jimmy Woo, great.
He's great.
They take a small character from Ant-Man and the Wasp, and they show his progression as well, because the thing, like one of his best lines from Ant-Man and the Wasp was like questioning how Paul Rudd did the close-up magic trick. He was like, "How'd you do it with the card?" And now he does magic with the card. Yep. He escapes from handcuffs, and then he throws it back to episode 2 when he takes off the handcuffs. He's like flourish, which was what Vision was doing when he was like gum drunk. Like he was saying, like every time he finished the trick, he was like flourish. So obviously he liked the show that they're watching, just like Darcy. Darcy was a big fan of the
sitcom version of WandaVision.
Yeah. So, I mean, and it showed that he was much more competent as an FBI agent. So I'm looking forward to seeing both Jimmy Woo and Darcy Lewis anytime they want to throw them into the MCU. They're more than welcome for me.
Yeah, same here. And their schedules are both more open now, because Two Broke Girls isn't on anymore. Fresh Off the Boat isn't on anymore. So yeah, I say give us more of these people. All right, well, let's see. What else did you have written down that you wanted to talk about? Elizabeth Olsen's great here. We already the acting discussed that.
Is great from basically everybody. I don't know the actress who played Monica from anything prior to this, but I thought she did a really great job. Mm-hmm. Hayward was a good side villain jerk guy.
She apparently, I saw her in Dear White People, Tiana Paris, but she also was in Mad Men for many seasons, which I've never seen, but apparently is great.
I haven't seen it either.
So she's got some things, but Elizabeth Olsen, I really was quite back and forth on. Like that Marlene movie was really good, but then she did some other garbage movies, and I never really liked the Wanda character too much until now. but the way she pulled off the different sitcom versions of the housewife, or later years the working wife. I mean, she really channeled about 6 different people very, very well while still being the Wanda character.
Yeah, like so she did good Julie Bowen's impression for Modern Family.
Yeah,
but
that was one of my favorites.
But it wasn't like she was doing Julie Bowen's. It was Wanda, kind of similar to that. Like,
yeah, it wasn't like a straight up like imitation. It was an interpretation of the Julie Bowen character, but through a different person's lens or something. Like, it was definitely not like a straight, parody or imitation. And she did the same thing, when we saw the 60s, she was doing like some Bewitched kind of thing, because obviously she's a witch. We know that now. Well, we knew it then, but she didn't, I guess. And so, she was doing those sort of things. And again, it was like, it wasn't necessarily an Elizabeth Montgomery impression, but you could tell exactly who she was interpreting.
Yeah, because never once did we think, oh, this isn't Wanda Maximoff. We always thought it was Wanda Maximoff. It was just like she was in a different decade. And just the TV themes in general, we like the way that they use it is great. Because at first we're like, why is it in there? But we find out from episode 8, when we're looking back, that TV was such a big part of Wanda in general. Her parents sold bootleg VHSs or DVDs or whatever when she was kids, and she grew up watching the Dick Van Dyke Show. Like when she was in the
I thought that was a great scene when they were in the bombed out apartment.
Yeah, when she was in Hydra, she was watching Brady Bunch. When she first got into the Avengers, she bonded over Vision over Malcolm in the Middle, and that's obviously why we're also seeing these classic television shows as well.
Right.
So it all kind of makes sense as well.
Because of the motif of the sitcoms and everything. I mean, would you agree this is probably the most original thing that the MCU has done, really, since it became what it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's the most original thing that they've done, because I don't think there was any type of comics to base this off of. Prior to this, like probably the most original thing that they did was probably maybe the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, because it was kind of nothing we really saw before, because no one really knew these characters.
Right. There was
like
apparently a short-lived Vision comic, and I don't know the era on this. I think maybe it was like early 2000s or 90s, but it was Vision in like a suburban type of life with a suburban family, but it wasn't with Wanda. It was with a Vision type wife and 2 Vision type children.
Okay.
So there was that, but yeah, I mean, that definitely, I don't think is too much of a template for this.
No, but it maybe gave them the idea of, hey,
perhaps, yeah,
rework it to this. And there was a lot of nods to like the MCU in general. Even in the first episode, when Vision gets hit by the plate in when she's walking by, because Wanda's like cleaning stuff, and she's like, my wife in the flying saucer, and she's like, my husband with his indestructible head. Like that was like a gut punch right off the bat, because you like, okay, last time we saw Vision, he had his head half destroyed.
That's right.
Yeah. Even also in that episode, the first episode, when Agatha came in, she's like, oh, you'll have this done. She snaps her fingers like a snap. I thought that was a nice little nod. And then also the classic Halloween costumes that they had, with Wanda wearing her classic costume, Vision and Quicksilver. I thought those were all really great. The only other thing I have down here is like the commercials. I thought the commercials were really great.
Yeah, the commercials were very cool, and I talked about some of those in my reviews. But going through it again, were there any like winks and nods to what was going on that maybe we wouldn't have known at the time?
Well, I think the commercials represent, they're all about Wanda, her past, her present, and maybe her future. I did like the fact that it was the same actor and actress in all the commercials.
Oh, see, I didn't pick up on that. Okay.
So the first one is the Stark toaster, which clearly represents the Stark bomb that starts us off on this journey. And in the first episode, the only thing that's colored prior to pulling back and seeing Darcy's hand is the red flashing light on the toaster, which mimics perfectly the red flashing light on the bomb that we see later. And we find out that maybe Wanda had this power all along. And the tagline for the toaster was "Forget the past, this is your future." So obviously, it's going to be more important than what we think.
Right.
The Strucker Hydra watch is clearly referencing Strucker did all the experiments on Wanda, and then that is what made her power stronger. The Mind Stone tapped into what little power she had. And I also think that they're kind of rewriting Wanda's character in general, because prior to this movie, this show, the movies said, hey, both Wanda and Quicksilver got their powers from these experiments. And that was because they couldn't use mutants because of the Fox contracts that they had. So 23 Fox was like, hey, we have the X-Men, and Marvel was like, well, we have the Avengers, and Wanda and Quicksilver appear in both. And they're like, well, how can we do this? Because Marvel's like, well, they're part of the Avengers. They're more Avengers than they are mutants. And we're like, well, they're the kids of Magneto in the X-Men universe. So they were like, well, you can't use mutants or talk about Magneto in the Marvel MCU. And Fox was like, well, we want to say Avengers ever. And that was what it was. Now it doesn't matter anyway, because it's all company.
Thank God all the lines are down now.
Yeah. So now I think they were like, hey, she had this power all along. And this TV show basically saying that maybe she's a mutant, and that's how we get mutants into this world. The third one was the Hydra Soak, which was I'm not sure if it was like cleansing Hydra and join the Avengers, if that's what it's supposed to represent, or if it was more like fully believing in Hydra. And some of the stuff they said in that one was like, find the godness within. Is that the Scarlet Witch? When you want to go get away, but you don't want to go anywhere, escape to a world all your own. That's clearly alluding to making the hex. And then we get to the Lagos paper towels, which I think originally when I saw that was alluding to the in Lagos in Captain America Civil War is when she accidentally takes the bomb that's about to explode and she tries to get away and she blows up the building. A lot of people die, and that kind of makes the events of Civil War and the Sokovia Accords and stuff like that. But the tagline was heartbreaking. It's for when you made a mess you didn't mean to, because obviously she didn't mean to. But I also think now series is like that also alludes to what she's doing right now. She's making a mess and she didn't mean to, because basically she lost everybody in her life, and then when she finally hit rock bottom, she untapped a magic she didn't know she had and created this world, which takes us to the next one, which is Yo Magic Yogurt, the snack for survivors. Obviously she's a survivor, and it shows that kid not being able to open his yogurt pouch and basically withering away.
He dies.
I think for her to open that magic pouch that she obviously had, like, she had to be at rock bottom. So I mean, that also could be alluding to Agatha and the fact that she wants to drain people's powers, and that's what Agatha does. And that's clearly what she does to even her own mother.
What about also her kids withering away when she takes that down? That could be something too, because it was a kid that was on the island.
Yeah, and then the last one was the Nexus drug. Obviously, you talked about that, the Nexus beings,
right?
How Scarlet Witch is a Nexus being. So I think that's her future. But it also talked about because the world doesn't revolve around you, or does it? So that's kind of like alluding to what was going on in the current time period. So, but I also for the side effects for that drug, it was feeling your feelings, confronting your truth, seizing your destiny, and possibly more depression. And I feel like that's everything she has to do in the last episode, was really feeling her feelings, confronting her truth, seizing her destiny, and obviously having more depression, because the last 5 minutes of the show is truly heartbreaking for her and Vision.
It's it's awful. I mean, she loses everything at once.
Yeah.
It's interesting that they're the same actors. I didn't pick up on that, which makes sense, because inside Westview, the people that would have been cast for the commercials would be like the same people, just in different eras. I didn't even pick up that they were the same actors.
Yeah, and also it could just be alluding to the fact that this woman is obviously Wanda, and the man is kind of like Vision. It's like kind of alluding to them. But going to the end of the episode, was like what Vision says. He says, "I have been a voice with no body, a body but not human, and now a memory made real. Who knows what I might be next?" So obviously that's alluding to White Vision. And then they say, "We said goodbye before, so maybe we'll say hello again." So obviously Vision and Wanda are somehow in the MCU gonna be reunited, I feel like.
Yeah. And also the part where she says to her kids, as she's like putting them to get, to bed for one last time, thank you for choosing me to be your mother, or whatever she says. That was really good as well.
Yeah, and she said families forever. So obviously, and in the comics, Wanda and Vision have two kids named Billy and Timmy, or Tommy and Tommy and Billy, just like they are, and they have the same powers that they develop in the television show. So I feel like it's not the last time we'll see them either.
Yeah, and especially since we hear them sort of hollering at the end of that post-credit scene.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, look, I mean, I think this is one for the ages. I mean, this show is sort of a cultural touchstone. I feel like everybody has been watching this thing. And even, I mean, I can't imagine people that aren't really involved in the movies are getting too much out of it. But even my mother, like this weekend, was like, oh, everybody's watching this WandaVision. Should I check it out? To which I said, probably not. Like, you're not really going to understand it. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that a show like this has really kept everybody riveted on the every week kind of platform that Disney Plus has.
And I enjoyed the final episode. I enjoyed the series finale, which was the final episode, what it was called. I think a lot of people maybe were not enjoying it as much as I did. I do know that it's one of the not as highly reviewed episodes of the show, but also on par. Actually, probably the first two are probably the weaker in review wise, the lowest score, because people were like, "What is this? What are we?"
Right? Nobody understood what was going on.
People were reviewing the series based off the first two episodes and were like, "Oh, this is a 0. This is a 1." Like,
but see, I was intrigued. I gave it a B plus maybe, but I'm also a classic sitcom fan, so I was like, well, all right, I'm not quite sure where this is going, but I love all of these little, tropes. I get the feeling that a lot of the MCU fan base is a bit, younger than us, probably not used to watching things in black and white, and are probably like, this is so stupid, like this looks old, like I'm not interested. So I think that maybe was part of it too.
I know, but I thought the first episode, like, it was funny. Like, all of these episodes were
I
funny.
agree.
Like, sitcoms were funny for being sitcoms. Like, where she was like, "Oh, I'm married to a man, like a human man, like perfectly
Yeah,
normal." Like,
trying to
there's no,
cover it up. Yeah. There's classic tropes that they kept going back to in the show that I just feel like younger viewers wouldn't appreciate, but at the same time, the writers and the creators of this had to know how the first couple episodes were going to look, and they were probably like, "Well, F it, we don't care," like we're going to build to something, and if people are on for the journey, great. But they also probably knew any Marvel fan worth their salt was going to stick with it, even if they hated those first two episodes, because it's Marvel and they have to be involved so they know what's happening. So I think they just were like, well, whatever, we'll probably get very divisive reviews on those first couple, but then once we piece it together, and I think it's pieced together great.
yeah, and I think the people that don't like the season, the series finale, is I think they overhyped it and they thought more connections were going to be made than it was. They thought the multiverse was going to be introduced in this episode with
I
Silver.
certainly thought we were going to see Benedict Cumberbatch. I did.
Yeah.
But I wasn't disappointed that we did.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine.
Like, I think some people got misquoted at some point because they thought a bigger, like a big cameo was going to come. And there wasn't a big cameo.
Wait, I did hear that though. Paul Bettany, was he on Ellen or something a couple days before the finale? And he did say there's like one major character still to come. But it's true. There kind of wasn't one.
No, I think he said he got to act with someone he never acted before. It was what he said, but he was talking about acting with himself, having that scene where he was
okay.
And I think that got misinterpreted. And then I think Elizabeth Olsen got quoted with saying, like, is there going to be like a Luke Skywalker type of cameo in this, like that level of cameo? And apparently she said yes, but it wasn't talking about that. It was talking about something else. Like, so people are expecting like maybe Doctor Strange or
I was, but I wasn't disappointed that he wasn't there because I liked the way it ended. But at the same time, look, these people are paid to sort of keep tight-lipped on things and be purposely vague and misleading about the things. So and look, this is why the super fandom of like Star Wars, Marvel, that kind of thing, it does get under my skin because it's like, dude, it's all just, it's for our entertainment, it's supposed to be enjoyed. Everybody's taking it a little too seriously. I thought this was the most original thing Marvel has done probably ever, at least, for TV or film. And this is actually the first Marvel show I've ever watched, come to think of it, because I didn't watch S.H.I.E.L.D., I didn't watch Agent Carter, I didn't watch Daredevil, any of the Netflix ones. And I genuinely don't feel like I missed out on anything. Like, I still was able to follow along with the movies just fine.
Well, that's the thing, is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter like had nods and like to the MCU, but it was more like the MCU was kind of like filtering into that show. It wasn't like the show was filtering into the MCU movies. Like, probably the biggest thing in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was that it was on when Captain America Civil War happened. Not Civil War, Winter Soldier. So the whole Hydra was had S.H.I.E.L.D. That was something that they had to tackle. And like, so once that premiered, the movies, like the next, like maybe 2 episodes later, it was like, that's what happened as well. And we were like, oh, some characters that we knew as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. were actually agents of Hydra. And that was a big twist and stuff like that. But as we went farther along in the seasons, they couldn't do that as much because they couldn't align themselves with that as much. And most of the movies were being released during the summer, which you don't have that.
Yeah, that's true. And also, I mean, I know Sam Jackson, did some appearances in S.H.I.E.L.D. or whatever, but like, you're not going to get a lot of these actors to do, a guest spot on Jessica Jones, or whatever. So I think it's kind of hard for them to even do that.
Yeah, and then the Netflix shows, like they were part of the MCU, but they barely talked about anything that happened in the Avengers or something like that. Like I don't even think they name drop anybody. Like maybe like they kind of allude to the Hulk by like a big green guy or something like that. Like,
but I think that makes sense because I mean, people, in the studios and stuff have to realize that yes, they're going to get millions and millions and millions of eyeballs on their movies, but there's going to be a very select group of people that are watching everything that Marvel puts out. And so, I think it would do a disservice actually to the movies if they did sort of filter it in. But I feel like this one, because it's the first Disney Plus show, and we just spent the first year in over a decade with no new Marvel content because of the pandemic.
Yeah,
I think people were definitely primed for this show, and I have to imagine more people watched WandaVision exponentially than ever watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. even, which was probably the biggest of the shows.
And it was because these are people who were in
main that's right, that's true, main characters,
like
supporting.
Yes, you had Agent Coulson on the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I mean he wasn't an Avenger. These are Avengers.
Right.
These are superhero people with superhero powers. It's going to be more MCU than anything that we've had before. So I think this was the perfect way to start phase 4 of the MCU. I know that was supposed to be Black Widow. That was supposed to come out in May. But
you know what? Black Widow is a prequel anyway. I think you could probably put that anywhere.
Yeah. And well, obviously we haven't seen Black Widow, so we don't know what repercussions that has on the MCU. But I think it was perfect setup for phase 4 of the MCU, which is going to have a lot more television shows.
Loki starts, I think, in 2 weeks.
No, it's not Loki. It's
or what is it?
It's Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Yeah, I think Loki's the summer.
Loki's in the summer.
But that's another thing. This WandaVision, they had to cut off the filming because of the pandemic, so they filmed the last half afterwards or whatever. But if there was anything that like we needed to see Black Widow to understand, they could have just taken that out.
Yeah.
And sort of rearranged the show. So, okay, well, they won't see Black Widow yet, so let's do this. That's possible too.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm excited for phase 4 of the MCU.
Me too.
After Endgame, I was like, what's really going to happen? How are we going to really have much more? We don't have Iron Man. We don't have Captain America. They're going to have a Falcon Winter Soldier television show. They're going to have a WandaVision television show. Like, really, how excited am I going to be? But
it all came together.
If this is what we're getting, like from the Marvel Studios on the TV front, like,
yeah, you're not kidding. I guess with that in mind, we should grade this thing. For me, this is an A.
Yep, A all the way.
I think the only thing that really keeps it from being an A+ for me is that if you've never seen any Marvel stuff before, I think you'll be kind of confused as to what's happening. It's sort of, you definitely need some sort of basis for this show, at the very least, the Avengers movies.
Yes, I think to understand everything, but as a standalone television show, I think they introduced Wanda and Vision such a way in the beginning of the episode with a mystery. You're trying to solve it. You don't really understand what's going on, but basically they kind of explain everything that you kind of need to know
as you go along.
Go along, like Darcy's like, hey, those are 2 Avengers. Like, when you're watching, isn't that one dead? Like, in your review, like, you were like, oh yeah, Vision is dead. You kind of forgot.
Yeah.
So, like, they kind of
that's true. They caught me up pretty well.
That's why you have these, and then even with on the previous, when it's like previously on WandaVision, later on in the episodes, they would actually show you stuff that you needed to know from Infinity
Yeah,
War.
that's right. Yeah, from some other
So
stuff.
I think you could still enjoy this if you haven't watched any Avengers movies, but I think you would still have to be somewhat of like a comic booky type of person. But if you were a comic booky type person, I think you would have watched the Avengers at some point.
Right. Yeah, you would have been there at some point. Yeah, I am with you. I think it's A all the way. I think this will, we'll be talking about this later on in the year when we're talking about our favorite shows. I think this has
Yeah.
got to be up there.
Yeah, and I think Elizabeth Olsen should be nominated for an Emmy. If she's not,
You know what? I agree. I didn't think of the Emmy chances, but yeah, I mean,
if not, I think
Mandalorian was just nominated for some things at the Golden Globes. I don't see why this couldn't be nominated for some things.
yeah, it's my favorite performance of 2021 so far.
Yeah, on the TV front, definitely, and even okay if they don't want to nominate her, which I agree she should be. I certainly think like the production designers, the set designers, they need to be given some awards for this as well.
Because the visual stunning. The one thing I really liked was when they changing the aspect ratios like in real time, like pushing from the box of the television show and then going widescreen because it was getting a little bit more cinematic.
Yeah, more modern.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a great discussion, Tim, as always.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to do the weekly reviews for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but I think if nothing else, we should do a wrap at the end of it again.
Okay. Yeah. I'm up for it if it calls for it. I feel like this was kind of like a little bit more mystery type of thing. And it was kind of like a journey that you went through. I don't know what Falcon Winter Soldier holds. So, but hopefully it's at the end of it, we feel like we need to talk about it.
Yeah, true. Yeah, true. Let's hope that we do. All right. Well, Tim, thank you for joining.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry, everybody, if we talked way too much about this show.
You know what? That happened. Our Queen's Gambit was well over an hour, I think, if I remember correctly. But, yep, everybody will see y'all next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.